This lapel camera video made national headlines and led to protests in Albuquerque. And now 2 APD officers seen shooting and killing a knife-wielding, mentally ill homeless man in the foothills are charged with murder.
Charges against now retired Officer Keith Sandy and Officer Dominique Perez came about 10 months after James Boyd's death. This marks the first time District Attorney Kari Brandenburg has skipped a grand jury and directly filed charges against an officer in a shooting.
It's one of the many angles our team is covering tonight. We're going to start with Stuart Dyson live at the District Attorney's office with how the DA is planning to proceed with a case against the 2 officers. Stu.
It's an uncommon procedure in Bernalillo County, but it does happen from time to time. There won't be any grand jury meeting in secret on this one. The DA's going full speed ahead with a preliminary hearing in open court, hoping to persuade a judge that there's sufficient evidence against the 2 cops to put them on trial for murder. And that would be a first. Kari Brandenburg says it's all about transparency. If these cops go on trial for murder, the community needs to know the reason why.
We need to establish probable cause. And you know, that probable cause, I know it might seem like a convenient thing for DAs to say we have to have probable cause. That probable cause standard protects all of the citizens in our country from a DA who's overzealous or who may be acting with bad intentions. And so we really have to adhere to that.
Brandenburg won't discuss the evidence in the case, but we do know that it includes the lapel camera footage of the shooting of James Boyd in the foothills last March and an audio recording of Officer Keith Sandy apparently telling another cop he wanted to shoot Boyd 2 hours before he actually pulled the trigger on that one. And the DA says that she is not going to be intimidated by APD's revelation last month that they were targeting her, investigating her for interfering in a case involving her deeply troubled son. She says she will not be intimidated, and she's going to go full speed ahead looking for this preliminary hearing. Back to you.
All right, and that audio recording of Sandy that Stu just mentioned is another controversial element in this case. It was first reported by 4 Investigates. Those words were picked up by a state police officer's lapel cam at the scene. In an internal investigation transcript, Sandy said he was joking. Then a few moments later, he stated that he did not think he had actually made the comment.
The Albuquerque Police Department has released a statement regarding Brandenburg's decision. It states, having the case presented to a district court judge at a preliminary hearing will permit the evidence to be presented in a transparent and public forum.
Albuquerque Mayor Richard Berry would also only release a written statement today. It reads, "We trust the judicial system will provide the family, our community, and the officers a fair, transparent, and unbiased opportunity to explore and present the facts as they relate to this tragic event."
Now, Keith Sandy's attorney is calling the murder charge unjustified and a bad decision from the DA's office, and he's planning to fight it. Stephanie Claytor picks up that part of the story for us. Stephanie?
Tessa, Sam Bregman says his client was doing what he was trained to do and protecting his fellow officer. Bregman says he's not going to hold anything back at this upcoming preliminary hearing, and that is when a judge will decide whether this open murder charge will stick or be dismissed, and if the case moves forward, it will be heard by another judge. Bregman also doesn't believe there's a witness out there that'll testify that Sandy committed murder when he shot James Boyd. He's not sure yet whether Sandy will testify during the hearing, but he is planning to bring several witnesses to the stand, including experts.
Some of those witnesses, I'm sure, will break down videos by less than a second per frame. Some of those witnesses will enhance audio recordings. Some of those witnesses will talk about training of a police officer and what goes through with that training.
Bregman hopes the experts will be able to enhance state police's dash cam audio recording. there's a discrepancy in what Sandy actually said hours before the shooting in that recording. Now, obviously, Bregman is hoping the judge dismisses the open murder charge. He says if this case moves forward, there could be an issue with having the trial in Bernalillo County because of the extensive media coverage. And Bregman also expects that preliminary hearing to happen months from now. Live in the newsroom, Stephanie Claytor, KOB Eyewitness News 4.
The actual violent confrontation between the officers and James Boyd only took about 10 seconds. Here's how it breaks down based on Dominique Perez's helmet cam video.
So first, Sandy threw a flashbang device near Boyd. It detonated, and then just 1 second later, somebody fired a taser shotgun at Boyd. So that's when the police dog moves in that you've seen on the video, and then that's when officers ordered Boyd get on the ground.
Yeah, and in the course of just 4 more seconds, Boyd reached into his pockets and, armed with knives, raised his arms in what APD called a fighting stance. A couple seconds later, officers Keith Sandy and Dominique Perez opened fire.
Okay, so those 10 seconds led to weeks of tension in the community and national headlines. That shooting happened on March 16th.
The next day, Chief Gordon Eden called the shooting justified, saying Boyd threatened officers. Eden later backtracked on that comment. But the situation led to protests, as we all know, here in Albuquerque.
Yeah, and there was a peaceful one on March 25th. But just 5 days later, on March 30th, organizers led a protest that just simply got out of hand. That's the best way to describe it, because it led to vandalism. We saw tear gas and arrests.
Then April 10th, the U.S. Justice Department, investigating a long string of police shootings and APD's use of force, released its findings. It determined some officers engaged in a pattern of excessive force.
Back in November, the city signed an agreement to revamp APD. It includes better training for officers and the reforming of specialized units.
After the shooting, the family of James Boyd sued, asking for reforms to APD and the way the homeless and mentally ill are treated in the city. Today, their attorney said the citizens of Albuquerque should be proud the DA chose to seek charges rather than sending it to a grand jury.
This is very, very encouraging that we are a model for the rest of the country, both with the DOJ consent decree and with this indictment. We are a national model for what should be done to reform a police department.
And that attorney has an issue with claims Sandy's defense attorney made earlier today. Now, Erica Zucco is live downtown with more on her reaction to that tonight. Erica?
Yeah, Tessa, Shannon Kennedy says that Sam Bregman dehumanized James Boyd in his comments and mischaracterized his behavior on the mountain. Keith Sandy's defense attorney Sam Bregman claims Sandy was simply acting to defend the lives of other officers. But Kennedy says the whole incident started when open space officers woke up Boyd while he was sleeping, patted him down, and drew guns. Then he drew out his knives, according to Kennedy. She says that Boyd was not a danger to anyone at the time that Sandy and Dominique Perez shot him, and she says the lapel video shows it.
One way we move forward is a watched cop does not boil. Keith Sandy's camera did not work. He didn't know he was being videotaped. But from here on out, APD officers are going to know that they have a lapel camera that should be working. And if it's not working, then we're suspicious as to why not.
Now, Kennedy has filed a wrongful death lawsuit on behalf of the Boyd family against APD in the city of Albuquerque, and they'll be watching that upcoming hearing closely. Live downtown, Erica Zucco, KOB Eyewitness News 4.
Brandenburg says the case against Sandy and Perez will be transparent. But you got to wonder, why haven't we seen this process before? After all, APD has killed more than 20 people since 2010. Ryan Luby's live at District Court. Ryan.
Well, Tom, Brandenburg makes it clear. She says she never had enough evidence to pursue probable cause charges, to file charges rather, and any of those cases, not a one of them, but she says she was transparent on those cases. All the evidence of those cases is laid out right on our website. Regardless of that, protesters have challenged her track record on this for months now. Some certainly contended she had a cozy relationship with APD, but yes, this case against Keith Sandy and Dominique Perez is different. Brandenburg won't specify, as you've mentioned, as you've heard rather, what what the probable cause is, but she says she has enough to bypass the grand jury process. To be sure, we have a lot of video evidence in this case. We have a lot of audio evidence. I asked her if she's worried that this case and these charges will impact her working relationship with APD going forward.
All I can say is I hope that we can be professional and respect each other's responsibility to do the right thing and give each other, you know, the space that we all need to do the right thing.
Well, Brandenburg says she and her staff made the decision to pursue these charges all on their own. She says the cases in Ferguson, Missouri and New York City involving Michael Brown and Eric Garner, respectively, did not play a role in this. She also says the Department of Justice's report on APD did not play a role either. Now, Brandenburg says she did struggle over this. She says she wishes she could have turned this case, and a lot of other cases for that matter, over to maybe a panel or a special prosecutor. But as it relates to a special prosecutor, she says her office just could not afford it. She'd have to lay off some of her staff if that were the route that people would want her to take. For now, we are live downtown. I'm Ryan Luby, KOB Eyewitness News 4.
Ryan, thank you. And we want to thank Ahmad Assad, who is a well-known defense attorney in our area, for being here to clear up any confusion that you might have about today's announcement, because it is a big one. And of course, to give your insight to this. And one of the questions that we wanted to clear up, a lot of people might be confused about where this case goes from now, because it is different.
It is. It is different and unprecedented. It's 60 days from today's date, which the information suggests that it was filed today. There will be a preliminary examination that will be presided over by a district court judge. So essentially 60 days should be the deadline, but they can continue that deadline further if both parties agree.
And that's when we'll see if there's probable cause.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that determination is made for probable cause.
And then if we do get to that point and we do go to a trial, Sam Bregman, Keith Sandy's attorney, brought up today that his client was simply doing what he was trained to do by APD, what it's essentially his job. So if we get to a trial, would you be surprised if APD's training techniques were put on trial, essentially?
It would be, in my opinion, would be a dangerous tactic, very dangerous. Because on one end, what I heard him say is that he was acting, his client was acting with justification, lawful justification. On the other end, if he's going to attack the training, you open up the opportunity for what training in state police, when he was a state police officer, his client, or is it APD's training? And can you be legally justified to shoot John Boyd and at the same time be able to claim that the training was ineffective?
Really quickly, if they go to trial and they're convicted, what are the possible sentences that they could face?
In a first-degree setting, you're looking at life. Second degree, you're looking at a mandatory 1 year up to 16 years because it carries a firearm enhancement. On a voluntary manslaughter, you're looking at 1 year up to 7 years.
I'm sure you answered a lot of people's questions. We want to thank you again for coming in and joining us today.
Pleasure.
Tom, we're going to send it back to you.
All right, Tessa, and we continue pressing for answers in the case of an undercover APD detective shot by a fellow cop in Albuquerque. Tonight, what we've learned. That's coming up.
Okay, obviously.